Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Pastor Maureen, and I'm coming to you with my weekly update here from the Congregational Church of Amherst United Church of Christ. It's Wednesday, May 20th. As you can see, I am in our church sanctuary this week, and I thought it was important to be in this space as I want to address the question that's on many of our hearts and minds this week, which is, when are we going to be able to gather together in this beloved space as a community of faith once again? And that's on our hearts, especially as our state begins to open up around us, as we have a little more freedom to go out and about and meet with people while still practicing social distancing. And as we hear many of our states around us giving their churches permission to begin to gather for worship again, or if you've heard churches asking their states for permission to continue to be together again to worship. So you may be wondering, what is that going to look like for us, and what are we considering? First of all, I want to mention that our national gathering of our denomination in the United Church of Christ released a statement yesterday that we linked to on our Facebook page, in which they strongly urge all of the churches in our denomination to not gather together until all safety precautions can be addressed, with the consideration of taking the needs of the most vulnerable among us in hand. So what does that look like? What are the safety precautions? How do we protect the most vulnerable among us? Thinking about churches and our population and how most of us are in that high-risk category because of age or underlying health concerns. What precautions would we need to take if we did consider gathering together again? You may have heard churches referred to as super spreaders of viruses because we are sharing the same space for an extended period of time. You've heard of the 6-foot rule. You need to keep 6 feet apart out in public, and that really is for incidental contact. If you're passing one another in the grocery store or out on a walk or on a hiking trail, if we're sharing the same space for an extended period of time, we need to be 10 to 15 feet apart. So we need to mark off the pews to make sure that we're keeping a safe distance. Families, of course, who are in the same household could sit in the same pew, but most of us would be scattered around the sanctuary. Masks. I talked about masks last week, and this is becoming the norm out in public, so we would require people to wear masks in this space. And even with the mask, there are some things we would not be able to do. Singing, as sad as that is to consider. Of course, we wouldn't be able to have our choir here, but even singing from our hymnals, we could not do. Even responsive readings, like reciting the Lord's Prayer or the call to worship together, we may not be able to do. Sanitizing surfaces within the church that people touch within worship, whether it's the hand railings coming up or the backs of the pews, or there are things in the pews that we would need to take out that we wouldn't be able to sanitize. And of course, we wouldn't be using the hymnals, so we would take these out along with the Bibles and any of the other paperwork in the pews. We may even remove the pew cushions, so we wouldn't need to worry about sanitizing those. Use of the bathrooms, that's a big one. Would we sanitize between each use, and who would do that? So as you can see, there are a lot of precautions that we would need to take within this sanctuary just to be safe. Suggestion has been made, well, in the summer months, why don't we move outside? And of course, that's a possibility if we have small enough groups that we could be far enough apart that it would be safe and we'd still be able to hear one another. And that's the big thing about being outside. We would not have amplification because of our neighbors around us. We wouldn't want to disturb them. But hearing one another outside is very difficult with the projected voice. It's hard for people to hear when they're that far apart. So we'd have to consider small groups, maybe small gatherings may be possible. So it is not likely that we will gather together as a community in this way over the summer. We will continue to keep our eye on what happens in the state until we have a vaccine. it's just not safe for the most vulnerable among us to be here, and people will self-select and decide not to come if we did gather together. But then we have to think about who are we excluding. That goes back to our mission statement. How welcoming are we being if we're having a service that not everyone would be able to attend? And what kind of difficult decision are we setting up for them every week as they decide, well, I really want to be there. I hear people gathering and I want to be in this space together again. But I just don't feel like I can take that risk. We don't want to put that on all of you to have to make that difficult decision. Right now, we're hearing from most of you that you are liking or loving the online worship service, and you're fine if we continue that way throughout the summer and revisit things in the fall to see how the state is responding as it continues to open up, how the virus is responding, what the likelihood of it rebounding and coming back in the colder months is. But as we can consider all of this, it all goes back to our original decision that we made back in March to not gather as a church community, which to ask ourselves, what is the most loving thing that we can do for one another? It's not about fear. Wearing masks is not about fear. Not being together is not about fear. It's about protecting one another, serving one another, loving one another, going back to our mission statement. And the reason why we are gathered together as a body of Christ is to be loving and caring and serving to one another and healing as well. So all of this continues to be in the forefront of our minds and hearts as we think about how we will continue to be a church together, even as we continue to be apart. And we are doing that in our worship services. We will continue to do that over the summer. If we feel it's safe enough to be in a group of under 10, we will start to record our services here in the sanctuary together, Kate and myself, and possibly with Michael and Sarah present. So you can see this beloved space again during our services. As difficult that it is, just walking in here myself this morning, I had an emotional reaction to seeing, the pews and the windows and the light and the clock and these prayer shawls that are draped across the pews and all the things that are here that we miss. But what I'm missing most is you. I'm missing the people. And we get that touch through Zoom and through phone calls and emails and all of that, seeing each other from a distance. And I can't wait to be together with all of you in this space again, but I want you all to be here. I don't want any of you to be missing. So we'll continue to be the church and serve one another as we are apart. One of the ways we're doing that is this week we have our share drive-by donation going on. So check the Facebook page for the items that or the website for the items that Share is asking for us to donate. And myself and members of our deacons and our World Service team will be out in front of the church on Friday at late afternoon and Saturday morning. So if you have the items on that list, drive by, drop them off. We can wave from a distance, and we continue to serve the most vulnerable and most in need around us as a church. We are the body of Christ, even if we're not gathered in these four walls. As much as we want to be here and we love being here, it's going to be a while until we are here in the same space. But we are together always in spirit. So continue to watch the Facebook page and our website for update messages, and continue to keep in touch and give us feedback, and let us know how you're doing during this time as well. So until next week, be safe, be loving towards one another, and be well, and God bless.